Hey guys, my name is Ricky Nunes, and today I'm going to be teaching you 3 ways on how to reamp with your Quad Cortex. Method 1, I'm going to be showing you how to reamp when using your QC as an interface. Method 2 is going to be when you're using a separate interface, a DI box and a reamp box. And the third one is something that I call Windows Aggregate devices. So let's hop in. Alright, so I'm here in Cortex Control and I have a preset that I've been working on. So what you want to do is on your inputs, you're going to select the input that you have your guitar connected to. I have it to input 1. And then on your outputs, you want to set it to multi-outputs. So the way multi-output works is that outputs 1 and 2 are basically your DIs. If you have your guitar connected to input 1, then output 1 is going to be your DI and so and such. And then outputs 3 and 4 are basically your sound, your process sounds going out through USB. So I'm actually gonna set this is a dual chain kind of preset. So I'm gonna set this to input 1. I'm gonna set this to multi-outputs 2. But then I'm gonna set this chain to be on the right and this chain I'm gonna be to the left. All right, so now in your DAW, you want to create a track. I'm going to call it DI. We're going to have the input to whatever you have the guitar connected to. So in this one, we're going to set it to input 1. And now let's just record something here. So I'm going to set it to record mode. All right, so now that we have our DI, we wanna, on the DI track, create a send. We're gonna create a hardware send. And we're gonna set it to USB input 5, 6, 7, or 8. I'm gonna select input 5 for this. I like to put this sends to pre-fader, just so that I can lower the fader here and don't have to listen to the DI while I'm reamping. I'm gonna create a new track here. I'm gonna call it Reamp. I set it to record mode. I'm gonna set it to inputs 3 and 4, which are the main outputs from the QC. And then on the QC side, you wanna select the input to reflect the USB input. So we have the sends to USB input 5, so we're gonna set both of our chains to inputs USB 5. And now we click record. Okay, so now let's just hear that. Okay, so now I'm gonna be teaching you method 2, which is reamping with a different interface, reamp box and DI box. This is the method that I use, and I wanna show you a quick diagram of how I've connected my system. So here you can see I have my guitar connected into my DI/reamp box. The DI out goes into input 3 of my interface, and then the DI through goes into the QSys input 1. Outputs 1 and 2 go into inputs 4 and 5 on my interface, and then it all goes through USB into my DAW. When I reamp, I switch my DI box to reamp mode. I send my DI from my DAW through an output from my interface, and then that signal goes through the same DI through signal flow and back into my DAW. So with this method, the most important thing is to calibrate levels between the interface and the QC. Our goal is to have the QC levels that are similar to connecting our guitar directly into it. So for this, you'll need a guitar line, a multimeter, and an available output from your interface. So once you have connected your guitar line to the available output on your interface, you want to go into your DAW and create a track. I have this one here called Tone Generator. On this track, you're going to want to put a plugin that can create a sine wave signal. And you also want to assign a send to the output that you have your guitar line connected to. So in my case, it's output 4. Once you have your sine wave going out through your interface into the guitar line, you want to grab the multimeter, set it to volts AC. You want to put the prongs into the end of it, and you want to lower or raise the volume on your sine wave generator until you reach 0.5 volts on the multimeter. On my system, I know 10.2 gives me that value. Okay, so now you want to connect that guitar line into an instrument input on your interface, and it's important to have the preamp level set all the way down. So I've connected the guitar line into input 2. You want to create a new track. Here I'm using tone track. You want to set the input to whatever instrument channel you're using. I'm using input 2. I want to set it to record, and you're going to see the sine wave level coming in. You want to take note of the level of the peak that you're getting on that meter. So in my system is -12.6. So this level is the nominal gain input level on my interface. Now I want to verify the nominal gain input level on my QC. So I'm going to take that guitar line and I'm going to connect it into input 1 of the QC to check the level that I'm getting there. Okay, so I've connected the guitar line to input 1. I'm going to check the input here, and I'm reading -14.7. So that's the nominal gain input level on my QC. So now we know the nominal gain input levels for both devices. So let's start adding the DI box and the Reamp box into this chain. So now I've taken the guitar line out of the QC and I've connected it into my DI box. My DI is going into input 3. So on that tone track, I'm gonna set input 3 as my input, and I'm gonna set it to record. So I see that the level is -24. So I want to raise this so that it's peaking at -12.6, which is our interface nominal gain input level. All right, so -12.6. Now I want to check the DI through signal. It's sending the same amount of level that we were getting on the QC when connecting directly. So I'm gonna open the Quad Cortex control here, settings, and I'm seeing that the level is higher. But that's just because my DI box set to the max level, it's spitting more than that 0.5 volts level that we were seeing before. So I can either compensate on my DI box or I can compensate here on the input level of the QC. I choose to compensate here just because convenience. I don't want to fidget around my DI box. I just want to set it to max, and then I just lower the gain in here until I get close to that 14.7 mark that we were. 14.8, 0.2 is not a big enough difference, so I'm good with that level there. So now that we've calibrated DI levels between the interface and the QC, let's just see if this holds true. So for this experiment, I'm gonna connect my guitar directly into the interface. I'm gonna connect the guitar directly into the QC so that we can see the levels that we are getting directly into it. And then I'm gonna connect my guitar into the DI box and see if the interface and the QC are getting similar levels or exact levels as if we were connecting directly into it. All right, so now I'm here in my DAW. I'm gonna select input 2. I'm connected directly into the interface right now. So I'm just gonna do some strums and see where the levels peak in here. So I see -3.3. So now I've connected my guitar into input 2 of the QC. Same levels as input 1, just taking out that compensation from the DI box. So let's see where this peaks. I'm seeing around -6, -6. All right, now let's connect the guitar into the DI box and see the levels on both units. So now I have my guitar connected into a DI box. I'm gonna set this tone track to input 3 because that's where my DI comes into my DAW. We were getting negative 3.3 here directly to the interface, so let's see through the DI box. Negative 3.2, so 0.1 decibel difference, so that's pretty close. Now let's see the QC. So we were getting negative 6 connected directly to it. Let's see through the DI box. Negative 6. So negative 6, so we're basically in the same ballpark. So now we've calibrated our DI inputs, so let's start calibrating our reamp levels. So here in my DAW, I'm gonna record a simple track, just drums from my guitar. All right, so now we have a DI on our DAW, so we want to calibrate our reamp levels. So on our tone generator track, I'm gonna open our tone generator plugin, but now we're gonna set the level to be our nominal gain input level in here. So it's negative 12.6. All right. Then we're gonna be sending this sine wave into our reamp output. In my system, it's output 3. I'm gonna set my DI box into reamp mode, and then I'm gonna see the levels that I'm getting on the QC. So on the QC, I'm getting way hotter levels, but that's just because my reamp box is really hot when set all the way to max. So in here, I do want to compensate from the reamp box. So I turn it down until I reach that negative 14.7. And it doesn't have to be like real perfect. Like that's fine. Now that I calibrated my DI levels, what I'm gonna do is on my guitar DI track, I'm gonna create a hardware send. I'm gonna assign it to output 3, which is where my reamp box is connected to. I'm gonna set it to pre-fader, just so that I don't have to hear the DI while it's being played. I'm gonna create a reamp track, which I have here. I'm gonna assign it to inputs 4 and 5, which is where the QC output is being fed onto my interface. I'm gonna set it to record. One thing that I like to do also is I have this like really short sample sound in here. I'm gonna play it to you so you can hear it. So I like to put that in front of that DI just because there's gonna be some latency when audio is being sent to the QC and brought back into the DAW, so that way I can align them after I'm done recording. So on the QC side, you wanna select the preset. So I'm gonna select, I don't know, this guy. On inputs, you wanna select input 1 or whatever you're connected to, and outputs, you set it to multi-out, it should be good there. Once you have that set up, you're good to record here, so let's just reamp. All right, so let's just see that the levels that we're getting on the QC are like what we were getting before. So we should see something here, negative 6. Let's see, negative 6. So we're getting really, really close levels to as if we were connecting the guitar directly to the QC. So in this way, you're certain that whatever you're sending to the QC it's as if you were connected directly to it, and the amps and effects of the unit can react correctly and how they're supposed to. So now let's talk about method 3, which is a hack that I like to call Windows aggregate devices. This is something that I found out, and it was pretty useful to me when I had an interface that just had 2 inputs. So I couldn't really play with like having a DI and 2 stereo inputs connected to my DAW. Playing with 2 amps was nearly impossible, or having stereo signals come into my DAW was also impossible. But with this, I got it to work around, so let's take a look at it. All right, so here in our DAW, I already have a DI recording here. Same template and same setup as method 2. But on my guitar reamp track, I'm gonna open a plugin called Inject by Audio Movers. And what this guy does is that it lets you send or receive signals through any USB device that's connected to your computer. So my guitar DI is going through output 3 of my interface that goes into my reamp box back into the QC. Instead of using inputs 4 and 5 of my interface, I'm gonna select this plugin. I'm gonna select here on external inputs, I'm gonna select the neural USB audio device. I'm going to select stereo 3 and 4 because that's what outputs 1 and 2 are directly to in USB. Set the buffer to whatever you have your system set up. And now you want to set your record mode to record output. I'll set it to stereo. And let's record. The only negative about this method is that it has a lot of latency. So you can see the latency between those 2 clicks. But this is something also that you can have less if you take your buffer size to a lower level. If you were just tracking, you can set it to 256 and the latency should be fine. This is a method that you can implement if you have a small interface and you can play with stereo signals or whatever. So I think it's a nice hack. So there you go. Well, I hope that you found this video interesting. If you have any questions, just leave them down in a comment below. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and thank you very much.